Hi, hello, friends. Welcome back to Nightcore Narrative. I am Elvish. This little cutie pie next to me is Violet. I hope y'all are doing very, very well. Today, I am discussing Book 2 in the pre-series. This is Sinner. Yeah, it's Sinner. Oh my god, I always get Saint and Sinner mixed up. I literally get them mixed up so often. It is absolutely atrocious. But, we are talking about Sinner from Sierra Simone. This book also did get a 5-star review. This is actually my favorite book in the series. I absolutely loved this book. This book is still down in my top 5 of this year so far. And mind you, I've read over 120 books this year. This is my top 5 for sure. As always, I do talk about spoilers in this book. So if you do not like spoilers, please skip the video or come back when you are ready. But let's get into it. I'm not gonna lie, I was nervous for this book. I did not like Sean Bell at all. Sean Bell is the brother of Tyler Bell, which was the male main character for Priest. Sean in Priest was arrogant. I did not like him. He gave me the ick. He gave me every ick possible. Did not like him. Just no, not at all. But in this one, he is the male main character. We have Sean Bell, older brother of Tyler Bell, and our female main character is Zenny. Zenobia, maybe. I wasn't sure how to pronounce her name, but Zenny as her nickname. Sean Bell, as mentioned, he is the older brother of Tyler Bell, which was the Priest male main character. He is a successful entrepreneur in Kansas City with a life built on sex, wealth, and charm, but obviously zero commitment because it's Sean. Why would he? He's been emotionally closed off ever since he lost his mother to cancer, which also shook his already distant relationship with being Catholic. While Tyler left the church to pursue his love, Sean never returned to it, choosing pleasure and detachment over vulnerability and belief. One day, Sean is approached by our female main character, Zenny, his childhood best friend's younger sister. Zenny is 21. She's very, very beautiful, very sharp, and about to become a nun. Before she takes her final vows, she wants to experience intimacy, desire, and life outside to make sure she's choosing the path full of awareness. So, of course, she comes to Sean, which is the last person anyone would ever expect to help her. Sean, of course, agrees, telling himself it's just for a month, 30 days, just sex, just a favor. But, of course, Zenny is nothing like he remembers. She's bold, curious, deeply thoughtful. Their chemistry is explosive, as one would imagine, and the emotional intimacy that grows between them begins to scare him more than the physical connection. As they grow closer, Sean wrestles with guilt, not only for tempting a would-be nun, but for facing parts of himself he spent years avoiding, his unresolved grief, his relationship with God, and his fear of love. Zenny, of course, meanwhile, begins to question whether the life of a nun is truly her calling, or if she's been using the... I write my notes, and I think this is a convent. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention the disclaimer. I am not religious whatsoever, and I did mention this in the last book. There are going to be some words that I don't know, like, if I'm saying it correctly, and I don't know the meaning behind it. So I'm assuming this is convent. She, questions whether it's actually a safe space. Things come to head when Zenny's decision arrives. Sean believes he's unworthy of love and is very terrified to hurt her, tells her to go, kind of pushing her away despite loving her. Zenny does leave, and Sean spirals, realizing he gave up the one person who challenged and accepted him completely. In the end, Zenny does return, not as a nun, obviously, but as a woman who chose her own path and chose clarity and obviously, her love for Sean. I've said his name so many times, I no longer know what his name is. The novel does end with hope, healing, and the idea that love and faith are not always at odds, but they can transform one another. I absolutely loved this book. I loved everything about it. Um, I was nervous at first because, as I mentioned, I did not like Sean whatsoever. He was very pretentious and very arrogant, but that was overcome quickly after the book started. I absolutely 1000% hands down loved his character development in this book. Oh my god, the development and the growth that he had in this book was phenomenal. I may have said it in the first review, but every character has their own personality, which I absolutely love. It was very easy to get through this book, very easy to digest, seeing how you don't have to work hard to figure out who is who. I know I've mentioned it in a lot of videos. It's very difficult writing more than one character for a lot of authors because they get very blurred with the I's, me's, we's. You don't really know who is talking at what point, and there are some times in books where it takes a chapter or two to finally realize, oh shit, I was thinking this was, for example, Zenny. No, this was actually Sean. This book was very 180'd from that. You could tell who was talking at every single point of the book. Sean has his own mannerisms. Zenny has her own mannerisms. They have their own way of speaking and their own dialect. I had something to follow that. I already forgot. My god, my brain just turned, like it was a flip of a switch. My brain just turned off. But it was very, very easy to digest. It was very easy to see who, what, when, where, why. Even, I believe somewhere in the book, Tyler ended up showing back up. And you could easily tell it was Tyler because he and Sean are two completely different beings. And it was written well enough to grasp that in the book, if that makes sense. I will be honest though, I shed some tears in this book. No one prepared me for the ending, so obviously, if you're watching this video, wondering if you should read this book, please do. Please do. Your heartstrings will be fully played with. It was fantastic. So I know Sean, he, as I mentioned, he's very pretentious, very arrogant. He's not really the nicest guy. He does work 24/11. Obviously, he doesn't sleep, he doesn't eat, he works. He sleeps and dreams about work. He is attempting to be the next big boss man at his job, and of course, the big boss is very, what word am I looking for? He doesn't allow Sean to take a breath. Basically, he basically says you have to go if you want to be the next me, and Sean takes that very literally. He does everything and anything he can to show that he is capable of being the next big baddie, but he kind of loses himself along the way. He doesn't really allow himself to take a break. He doesn't really allow himself to dive into self-care or anything of that nature, and it is kind of disappointing. But either way, I don't remember exactly how old Sean is. He is in his late 30s. I want to say around 38ish. So having a very fresh young 21-year-old, as mentioned, he grew up with Zenny. That's his childhood's best friend's sister. He grew up with her. He watched her sprout into the young woman that she is, and now is faced with this is very forbidden, but I have to teach you everything. And Sean is so respectful. I know everything I just described about him does not make sense. You're like, okay, that's like left field. Sean is so respectful. It's very well known that Zenny is, I don't know how to say the word. I don't know the alternate word for YouTube, but she has never explored sexuality before. So he is a baby, basically. And, she comes into this agreement with Sean, and he basically teaches her about her first kiss, basically teaches her about anything and everything. And it goes almost the first, I think it's like 20 days. I think there's like 10, maybe 15 days left, but at least the entire month goes by and he doesn't even give her what she wants, which is sexy time. He is very respectful with her boundaries and very respectful with her wishes. And there are times in the book where she kind of pushes him for more, but he's very, very adamant on, we need to do this the right way because you deserve to have every bit of it rather than just jump to the end. So he introduces her to a lot of new concepts. He introduces her to, this is hard because like books like this and like books like, well, any dark romance or of similar nature, it's hard to talk about on YouTube because you can get your video taken down so quickly. So I'm not being very descriptive, but I physically can't, so I'm so sorry. But he introduces, I can say toys, I guess, because that can be anything. So he does introduce those. He introduces, as I mentioned, different concepts. He kind of plays around with all of it and allows her to, I guess, technically play around with everything. We do find out that Zenny does like to volunteer. She does really good volunteering stuff. She just does really good as like the, I'm sorry, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not religious, so I don't know like the phrases, but like I'm just gonna say nun in training. I'm so sorry. That probably just offended a shit ton of people. I'm so sorry. But as she's a nun in training, I guess she does so good with everyone, and she does everything that she can to better the people around her, and she does just that with Sean. She does end up bettering him. She ends up allowing him to see that work is not the only thing that goes on in his life. He does need companionship. He does need compassion. He does need self-respect and respect for others. And she ends up getting to a point where she changes him entirely, where instead of work, 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 he's now thinking of love and partnership and, you know, eventually family. You know, they do end up eventually. I think this is the next book, which I'm about to talk about in another video, but they do end up getting a family with one another, and they do end up growing obviously happily ever after. And I really loved that. You know, I kind of hated the fact that she, how do I say, didn't complete the nun thing and whatnot, but I do believe she is a lot happier, and I do think that Zenny and Sean were made for one another very well. As I also mentioned in the first book, the descriptions in this book are so very well done. There's a lot of authors that tend to over describe, and it really ruins the book, and it ruins the flow of everything going on. And then there's also some authors that don't describe enough, and you're just like, okay, I wish I knew a little bit more. But Sierra has really perfected the descriptions in her books, and she does it just perfectly. It's just enough to coat your palate, but then it's obviously just enough to not be too much to where you're just like, okay, calm it down, sis. This was also a really good change from the priest as well, because if you came from the last video, you know that the priest was a little bit too overplayed for me. There was just smacks on smacks on smacks, and I was just so fed the fuck up with it. Even though I did love the priest, I was so fed up with the fact that every other sentence was a spicy scene. Sorry, I was holding my coffee for like 2 minutes and I never took a sip. But like every other literal paragraph was another spicy scene in the priest, and I'm just like, okay, I'm done with this. I'm bored. I don't care. We do obviously get some spice, but it's not very apparent. It's not very vulgar. It's very comforting. It's very teachable. It's very respectable. It's very just, we build up throughout the book. We get spicy type of like encounters, but it's not full on smexy time. And then finally, when we do get the smexy time towards the end, it's explosive. The chemistry is out of this world. It was a very, very well written book as a whole. I do love how this book wasn't forced as kind of like how the priest was. I do feel like the priest was very forced with the amount of vulgarness that was in it. Like, some of that wasn't necessary, as I mentioned in the last video, and I won't go too much in detail. You can watch that video if you like, but I really wish I got more of the plot and less of the vulgarness as just mentioned. But in this book, it was completely opposite. I got so much plot in this and very little smexy time, but it was done so very well. The amount that we did get worked so well, and it worked hand in hand with the amount of plot that we got, because if it were any other way, it would not have worked at all. So I did really appreciate this book, and I really appreciated the writing in this book, the descriptions in this book, the over detailed version of like the plot and the world building and the character development and the complexity with their relationship. Just, this book was phenomenal. This book was easily 10 out of 10, and as mentioned, this book is easily in one of my top, it's like one of my top 5 reads of this entire year so far, and this book is going down in history for me. I loved every single second of this book, and you know, I did shed tears. The ending made me shed some tears. I was happy tears, of course. Like, it was just such a very well-rounded book. Everything about this book just, it did everything for me. I know I've mentioned it before, but I kind of have this non-existent checkbox checklist type thing. Was there good world building? Yes. Was there good character development? Yes. Was this? Yes. What? Blah 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 blah, so on and so forth. And every single box and then some got checked off for this book, and this book easily, like, a 5-star rating doesn't do it justice for me personally. I loved and appreciated this book so much, and I understand you can technically read this book as a standalone, but it does bring up past stuff. It does talk about his mother, it does talk about Tyler, it does talk about the other brother as well. It talks about a lot of family aspects where some of that is needed. Like, you get that information from the priest, but I don't think it's too much to the point where you can't read this as a standalone. But this is definitely one of the books that I would recommend people read, because this is easily, hands down, a fantastic book. But I'm gonna leave it there. I can talk about this book for hours, and there's so much that I want to say, but you know, if you have been here with Night Court Narrative for a minute, you know that some of my favorite books, I don't want to go too much in detail. Well, this book I can't really go into detail because, like I said, YouTube and their TOS, I can't, because I will get banned for that, and I don't want to do that. So I can't necessarily go too much in detail with this, but I also don't want to go too much in detail because I want y'all to experience it for yourselves. And if you did experience it, let me know what you thought. If you loved this book as much as I did, let's discuss it. If you truly, absolutely hated this book, I want to know why. And, you know, I'm always that person where I appreciate the fact that everyone has opinions and everyone is allowed to have opinions. So I would love to hear about why you hated this book or why you absolutely loved it. And yeah, maybe I can change someone's mind, or maybe you can just tell me everything about it, and maybe it'll make me take a step back and be like, you know what, maybe you're right. So I would love to do that. But until next time, I will be talking about Saint as well. I know that video is going to be so short, but hopefully you guys are excited for that, and I hope that everyone has a very wonderful day, or I guess in this case, night. Have a very wonderful night. And yeah, I really, really hope to see you guys in the next one. Bye, y'all.